All right, we're underway. Round one's done and dusted, and it's good to be back. Now, I've got a couple of things to mention. Normally, we'd spend a bit of time talking about the our round one, and there's a bit to discuss at AFL level two, no doubt. But we've got a special guest or two special guests tonight that I need to hand over to shortly, and we'll discuss all the footy matters next Monday night. So if you've got any stuff you want to ask, hold that back till next week. Now we will be staying at Fred Block Oval, next to the Adelaide University Oval for training for the rest of the year. So that's been booked in. They can't kick us off like CBC Oval. So from this Wednesday night onwards, every week, 5:30 to 6:45, same venue as we had last week, which is a really good venue. We've organised for the female umpires that you can go and change or go to the toilet in the main grandstand that the female players are using on that night. So obviously the changes we have are only really accessible for the male umpires, but we've now got somewhere for the females to go if there's a need. This Wednesday night, first and second year field umpires need to bring a whistle. We've got skill drills, so encourage all the new umpires to come along to that. Some good stuff to go through there. Umpire Association's running a free barbecue this Wednesday night after training and drinks at cheap prices. So that's always worth looking forward to. And it's probably good timing just to remind everyone that it's unacceptable to be criticising umpires at any level on social media. So all you irrational Crows fans, just behave yourselves, would you? All right. So without any further ado, let me introduce Ryan Nelson, who's the Sanford Coach Development Coordinator. He's sitting with Matthew Lucas, who's a psychologist. They're going to run the Tackle Your Feelings session. Ryan, do you want to just unmute yourself, mate? I did mute everyone. You'll have to unmute yourself to come on.
Done. Yeah, perfect, mate. Thanks, Colin. Thanks for organising tonight, mate. And great to see all the umpires jumping on. So I'm going to give you a 30-second, introduction to the program, and then I'm going to hand over to the star of the show, which is obviously Matt, who's sitting here next to me. AFL Players Association, AFL Coaches Association, and Zurich Insurance, they've created this fund where we go out to community clubs, and whether that be umpires, players, coaches, and we try and encourage people who play our game or participate in sport at any level to have conversations around mental health. This is the program called Tackle Your Feelings, and it's certainly grown over the last couple of years. So thank you to Colin for organising us, giving us a chance to speak to all the umpires. Thanks to all the umpires, the great work that you do. Having said that, I'm going to hand over to the man who's standing right next to me. He's the psychologist in our program, and his name's Matt, and he's going to take us through the parts of the program that hopefully can help you in your umpiring, but also in your life outside of what you do on the Saturdays. Over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Ryan. We might just jump to the next slide. That's all right, Colin?
Sure.
Thank you. So look, a little bit about me. I've been involved in this program for 4 years now. Day-to-day basis, I work in a corporate setting with leaders and leadership teams. And I guess part of the reason I got involved in this program was I see the role of footy coaches is quite similar, that they're trying to get the best out of their players. And a lot of that is making sure they understand them as people and where they're at in terms of their well-being as well. So I've been involved for 4 years. Part of the other reason I got involved is I've got a little girl who's 2.5 years old. My wife and I are expecting another one as well in late July. And if I think of conversations I had growing up around my thoughts and feelings and my well-being, I traditionally have those with my mum. And it's not that Dad probably didn't want to have the conversations, but he probably just didn't feel he had the right tools to have those conversations around how I was thinking, how I was feeling, and how that was impacting my behaviour, and how probably I didn't perform as well as I could have at sport. But so I want to be a good role model for my little girl and whatever else comes along in late July when my wife and I have another little one as well. This is a slide. So with all the footy clubs that we go out to, it's a chance for me to share a little bit about why I'm involved in the program and the role that I play. But a really big message that we reinforce with the footy clubs that we go out to, and for you guys as umpires as well, is that I play a really small role in this program, so I'll step you through tonight. Look, some of the practical tools that you can use to better understand where you're at in terms of your mental health, and where you can better understand where others are at, and how to have those conversations. But where the rubber hits the road is what footy clubs actually do with it. And a lot of the footy clubs you go out to, I'm amazed at the culture of care that they create. And I'm sure I can only imagine how tough it is to be an umpire. So where you get that level of care and support from, it might be from family members, friends, or you've got a good peer network amongst you as umpires. It's really important what you take away from tonight and what you actually practice and do with it. So when we go out, Ryan and I go out to footy clubs, it's really about the role that coaches and players play and the footy club plays. That's really important in terms of what they do with the tools. We jump to the next slide, please, Colin. So something, and we'll look for one or two people to share back, and happy for you just to come off mute in a moment. But before I share, we appreciate that everyone comes to these sessions with a background or understanding or some exposure to mental health as well. So we appreciate that we're building on people's existing knowledge and experience. So we're just looking for, it might even be one or two people to share when you see the words mental health. What does that mean to you, and what's your experience or exposure to it? So is anyone happy to come off mute and just share what's their perspective when they see the words mental health?
We've got some regular contributions. I'm sure we'll get someone.
I can talk to it a little bit. It's Rob.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
So I don't know if everyone knows, I went through Hodgkin's lymphoma a couple of years ago, and I've actually written a book on coping mechanisms. So for me, mental health and getting through it's all about how you cope, what you do to put your best foot forward, and acknowledging all of those feelings and emotions as well. So then you can actually do something about it. So there's heaps to it, I'm sure, but that for me, I manage my mental health through how I go about my business, I suppose. So a little piece.
Thanks for sharing, Rob. And that's a really good call out. It's how we cope with, there's always going to be challenges and ups and downs and obstacles in life. How we cope and work through those things is really important. Thank you, Bo, as well, for acknowledging that as well. Bo said perfectly put, Rob. Can we jump to the next slide, Colin?
Sure.
Thank you. So we like to share our. So this first part of understanding mental health is a bit like the fundamentals of the footy game. So much like kicking, marking, tackling, handballing, you've got to know the basics before you go any further. And so we see mental health for all of us, it exists on a continuum. So none of us are going to be thriving at 100% all the time. There's going to be times when we're not at our absolute best and we're coping, and there's going to be times when we're also struggling as well. So if you think of the footy game, where those three phases of the game, where you've got the ball, you don't have the ball, and it's in dispute. The same with our mental health. There's going to be times when you've got great mental health. There's going to be times when your mental health's in dispute, and there's going to be times when you don't have great mental health as well. So that shifting up and down the continuum is really normal, and it happens for all of us. We shift up and down this. What we really need to get in tune with ourselves, but also with people around us, is are we shifting or are we getting stuck? And generally, if someone's struggling, they've been in a bad place for greater than 2 weeks. So it's important to know, well, what does that look, feel, and sound like for us, and also for others around us. So that shifting is quite normal. And I liked what Rob said before, those coping mechanisms and being able to bounce back from setbacks and obstacles. We like to refer to that as resilience. So even someone that's thriving, it's not going to be beer and Skittles for them all the time. It's more so when those tough times come up, they feel as though they've got the right tools and strategies to be able to overcome that and get through it. So we're just going to share with you a short video in a moment. Daniel Gorringe shares his experience of a time when he noticed that he was stuck and his mental health wasn't in a great space. So Colin, if you can jump to the next slide to share the video.
built this persona that I'm always laughing and having a good time, and it's quite often, as we're going to find out, not the truth. I remember it clear as day. The first time that my anxiety creeped in was under 15s, Friday night, we're playing Hope Valley at Hope Valley. And all during the school day, for some reason, out of nowhere, I was like, I do not want to play this game. Like, I don't. There's no reason. I go home and get prepped for the game and just burst into tears in my room, and mum and dad like, what's going on? And I said, I quit. I'm done, out of nowhere. That's the first memory of when my anxiety crept up, and I thought, okay, I've never felt that before. That was the start of a pattern that continued throughout my whole career. Really bottled it, really masked it, didn't tell anyone what was happening. I kind of kept it all to myself. My family, friends didn't know. Deep down, loved the sport, but I hated being part of it, if that makes sense. I loved what it came with. I get to hang out with my mates. I loved that I was representing my family and they'd tell their friends and everyone would watch the games, but I actually hated doing it. So it was super bittersweet being up there.
He'd be disappointed with that.
It broke from the football sense out into my everyday life when I got to Carlton. That was when I realised that this is now taking over my life. By the end of it, my mental state and not wanting to play footy actually wanted injuries. I wanted to be injured so I could use that as a scapegoat for not being on the field and not being this highly touted player that everyone said I would be. So that was during a period where it was all reaching a pretty bad spot. So I hurt my foot and had a hot spot in my foot, and the physios and doctors at the time said, look, it's okay, it's in a spot where you probably can't do more damage to it. And at the time I was saying, I just wish this physio and doctor would say you can't play for 6 weeks.
Colin, if you can jump to the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So look, incredibly powerful story of Daniel sharing a time when he noticed himself stuck on the mental health continuum and not in a great place. When I go out to, Ryan and I go out to footy clubs, what we tend to do is we give people a chance to share their experiences, but we appreciate we press for time. So I'll share an example of a time when I noticed myself going up and down the continuum. But also just a little bit of homework for yourselves to take away with in terms of reflecting on this continuum and what you can do with it as well. So if I think of a time when I noticed myself,
Matt, can I just jump in? I'm going to actually have some time on next week's Zoom for people to share some stories. So yeah, obviously we haven't got time tonight, but I'm definitely going to open up next week for discussion.
I think that'd be awesome. Thank you, Colin. So if I was to reflect on a time I've noticed myself shifting up and down this continuum, I think 2.5 years ago when my wife and I welcomed our little girl into the world, many years of deeply ingrained bad habits and not realizing what lack of sleep would do to me. It was a bit of real shock to the system. And I guess things that I noticed in myself is and people told me as well, I started to get a little bit shorter and sarcastic with people around me. So I was probably a little bit more direct and sharp in the way that I'd talk to people. Also in the workplace, we'd have usual rituals of going for a coffee as a team. I'd start to pull away from those sort of things. Also food choices. I noticed Uber Eats bill went up quite a fair bit. I was probably drinking a little bit more than I'd probably like to admit. Regular routines that kept me in good stead, like going for a run, those things started to slip away as well. So there were some things I noticed, and there was also some things that other people noticed in terms of where I was at and where I probably wasn't in the best space as well. With the footy clubs that we've gone out to, experiences that people have shared, the impact of COVID and what that did, the disruption it caused for them in terms of usual routines and patterns and job losses people have shared, the impact that's had. We've had players and coaches share really positive experiences. So winning a premiership and the impact that had and what that looked like. Injuries have been a big one that players have shared. When the impact of an injury, they never realised how good they had things until they couldn't do play footy or be involved, what that had. And also what's really heartening to hear from people is a lot of times we'll ask people questions, well, when you're in a bad space, what were the things that helped you move into a better space? And they'll generally say it was There'll be even some simple things like listening to trashy music or watching a trashy TV show. All the time, it's having conversations with friends and family members and support, and people checking in on them and the care that they show as well. So it's also I guess this is a bit of homework, and when you have the catch up with as a group next week as well, is have a think about, and you even jot down a few things when you're at your best and you're thriving. What does that look like? What are the things that you might say or do when you're at your best, or things that you really enjoy doing? When you're not at your best, but you still function, getting through things, what might that look like? And when you're struggling as well, what that might look like as well. It can even just be a couple of things, and sharing. What I really encourage you to do is, it may not be next week, but sharing it with someone that you love and trust, because them knowing, well, what does that look like when you're at your best, when you're just going through the motions, or when you're struggling, means that they've got a better understanding, and they've got some color and context in terms of, well, if I'm seeing these shifts, it might be a time for me to have a conversation with you. So I've shared this sort of stuff with my friends and my wife as well. So sometimes I think I regret sharing some of that stuff, because they'll know when I'm probably not at my best and look to check in. But it's a pretty vulnerable thing to do, but it's a really powerful thing to do, is to share, well, what does that look like in terms of when you're at your best, you're at your worst, and you're somewhere in the middle. And it's sharing it with someone that you know cares about you, and you know that you trust will have the right conversation with you as well. So if you do anything out of tonight, that's something super simple to do, and even sharing it with one person, or even sharing it back as a group next week, is a really useful thing to do. Well, just Colin, if you're able to jump to the next slide. So just to wrap that up, that's the first part of tonight, is understanding the fundamentals of mental health and recognizing, hey, we're all human. None of us are perfect, except for my wife. I'll say that. And we're all going to shift up and down this continuum. There's going to be times when we're struggling. There's going to be times we're coping, but there's going to be times we're thriving. What we really need to get in tune with, though, is if we get stuck and that there's that persistent absence of good health for at least, as I said, at least a couple of weeks, that's when we know that, hey, we need to get some serious support there. There's going to be times when we're still able to go through the motions and get through things, and we're still performing, we're not at our best and we're coping. And there's going to be times as well when we're feeling, hey, even though obstacles or we're facing setbacks, we've got the right tools and strategies to get through things as well. So we'll just jump to the next slide, please, Colin. So the next part, so the first part's understand the fundamentals of the mental health game plan. And once we've done that, how can we get better at lowering our eyes and recognizing what those signs and symptoms might look like across those three phases of the mental health game plan. Jump to the next slide. We don't like to labour the stats, but this is just to show how prevalent mental health challenges are across Australia. And this is from the recent ABS stats in 2022, the census that was done. 1 in 5 people experience a mental health condition. So that's people that are in that struggling category. And almost 2 in 5 people aged 16 to 24. And if you look at that on a footy magnet board, the red magnets that you see there, that would be representing people that are stuck and really struggling in terms of their mental health. Jump to the next slide, please, Colin. So just before we share this video, just a bit of context. This is just to give you a feeling. We've got some other great ambassadors. We'll have one that will talk to a time when they noticed they were struggling and what that looked like for them. We've got another player that will talk to a time they noticed they were coping, so they're still getting through things, but they weren't at their absolute best. And we've got, I think it's Stephen May, who talked to a time when he was thriving and what that looked like for him.
2021 Anzac Day, the biggest day on the footballing calendar outside of finals. I'm the least experienced umpire in the crew. I decided to put my hand up and take the first bounce. I think just the intent to put your hand up with 2 senior guys there to take that first bounce shows that I was really in that thriving state. There was a considerable amount of apprehension around taking the first bounce, but I knew that my form and what I'd produced before that would hold me in really good stead to be able to execute it as best I could. But I was also really nervous about missing the first bounce because it would be such an anticlimax for such a huge game with crowds back at the football that year. Approaching the bounce, I just knew I had to block everything out and go through my natural process and basically just hit the ball into the ground as hard as I could. And if I was going to miss, I was going to miss big. That was sort of my theory. And fortunate enough for me, I was able to execute it really well, and 3 seconds after I was thinking, why was I even worried in the first place?
It was my third game of AFL football and I didn't want to stuff up the bounce. It was starting to consume my thoughts and the anxiety was building. I think the anxiety for me came in withdrawing a little bit, and what that looks like is maybe being a little quieter, but also having quite a lot of energy. And so the way that energy comes out is sort of bouncing on my toes or constantly drying my hands or looking around the ground. So all those types of different things were coming into my mind just because of this one action that was coming up. I was constantly thinking about the negative. I was constantly thinking that I was going to stuff it up, and I was hoping that I didn't bounce it into my head or shank it completely. In terms of what I was saying, I was bringing it up to the other teammates, saying things like, I hope I don't stuff it up, and yeah, maybe it'll rain and I won't have to do it. So those types of negative feelings and thoughts were consuming the preparation of the game. So the first bounce, I remember it going straight up, which was exactly what I wanted, and there was a huge wave of relief that sort of flowed over me. And as I was backing out, I got tripped up by a player and found myself staring up at the night sky.
I think for me, a big challenge was when my bouncing really wasn't going too well in games, and at training I was doing one of two things. I was either trying to avoid practicing at all or practicing way too much. In training or in games, I was bouncing the ball and really not knowing where it was going, and it was affecting me in terms of not only performing that skill, but how I was dealing with not being able to perform that skill. And it was certainly an area of my game that I wanted to improve, and the impacts on my mental health were probably far greater than I realised at the time. I was probably showing up as being a bit agitated, a bit frustrated, and at times I was a bit withdrawn from the group and the conversations that we were having. And then it was just this sense of probably a bit of embarrassment, because it's something that I've done really well for a long period of time, and when you can't do it as well as you'd like to, there's an element of embarrassment. At times I was able to push it aside and just say to myself, well, look, that's one part of the game, and I'll sort of get by, and then I really need to focus on the rest of it. But there was other times where that frustration probably got to me a little bit too much.
And look, I'll just apologise. I'm used to delivering the players one. So the players one will have different players sharing their stories. We obviously got to hear the umpires' experiences, which is very relevant. And I can't even imagine how hard it is to do a centre bounce. So I can imagine the sense of dread and anxiety that comes with that as well. But we like to share those real life examples just to show in terms of what might that look, feel and sound like for different people across the continuum. Jump to the next slide, please, Colin.
Easy fix, just bloody throw the thing up. Anyway.
That's true.
There you go.
All right, and we'll jump to the next slide again. So we won't get you to do this activity, but this is something that we do at the clubs as well, and there's a bit of competition debate around this. We just jump to the next slide, Colin. We get people to have a look at these statements and have a go at placing where that might, they've got no context around it, but having a go at placing where that might sit. Could it represent someone that's coping, thriving or struggling? And part of the reason is that we do this is we play the way we practice. So the more we can sharpen our radar and our antenna in terms of what that might look like, the more in tune and more likely we are to have a conversation with someone who might not be at their best. So just jump to the next slide and keep going. We can do the big reveal for you. So generally here, I'll start with the struggling box. These are people that are looking to withdraw or pull away on the beers after every training game. It's okay to have a beer, but the key thing here is this is every training game. There's no point speaking up. Nobody ever listens, so that feeling of helplessness and that impact on physical health as well, been run down for a while and keep getting sick and that duration as well. The middle box, posting less on Instagram in the last few weeks. We've got this in the coping box because this is posting less since been the last few weeks, so it could represent a more recent shift. waking up really early on game day this season. This is an interesting one. We've had some players and even coaches say that for them, that's they're full of beans, and that would represent for them that they're thriving. So if that's something that's normal and not out of character for someone, that might represent that they're actually in a really good space. Important decisions have been difficult to make lately, so that ruminating and overanalyzing and delaying decisions. And the last, or this one here, been very tight at the end of each day this week. Again, it's not all the time yet. It's just at the end of each day at the moment. So it could represent a sign that someone's potentially on their way towards struggling. And the bottom one, it's not all the teammates. It's just the one teammate at the moment that's getting on this person's nerves. In the thriving box, lots of energy, prioritizing connections and friends, open to feedback, not missing training sessions. And this last one's a polarizing one. So for some people, this might represent they're struggling or coping. We put it in the thriving box because it's more kind of a sticks and stones, or things that people say on social media aren't going to impact me. But for other people, if this is a case of, and other players have shared this, if this is a case of someone that's usually well presented and all of a sudden they're showing up to the club pretty disheveled and run down and not caring about their appearance, then obviously that would represent that they're not in a good space as well. So context is everything. This is just giving you a sense of where these things might sit, and knowing yourself and knowing the people around you is really important. So just jump to the next slide. So this is, again, it just highlights some of the other things that are really important. The impact. So is this impacting other parts of their life? Is it impacting their work? Is it impacting their friendships? Is it impacting the way that they're functioning? How long has it been going on for? We don't want people chasing shadows, but is this something that's been going on for at least a couple of weeks? And this is really important, knowing what's normal for yourself. And that's why I said at the start, that simple exercise of jotting down a couple of things in terms of what struggling, coping, or thriving might look like for yourself, and sharing that with others. Knowing what's normal for yourself and normal for those around you, and recognizing, well, is this a shift or a change? That's really important to know, well, is this something that's out of character for myself or for this person? So how they look, what they say, and what they do is important. So this last part of tonight is all about getting numbers to the contest. We've spent the first two modules understanding the fundamentals of the mental health game plan. Once we've done that, how do we lower our eyes and recognise what signs and symptoms might look like for someone struggling, coping, or thriving? And then once we've done that, how do we get numbers to the contest and respond to someone that might be not at their best? Jump to the next slide, please, Colin. So really important, and I love this stat. You don't have to be a therapist to be therapeutic. 93% of people, this is from the ABS stats as well, positively rated just family members or friends having a conversation and showing care and support is incredibly important to their mental health. So don't underestimate or downplay the role that you play in just having a conversation with those that you care about. It's important to show support and acknowledge how they're feeling. Everyone views the world very differently. So someone's concern or stresses, you might see as something that's quite minute, but for them it's incredibly important. So it's important to show support and acknowledge what they're going through might not be something you see as tough, but for them it's tough for them. Asking questions, it's really tempting to judge or try and jump to a solution, but asking questions, being curious to try and understand what's going on for them is incredibly important in terms of having a conversation. And I touched on some of these beforehand, is when people are not at their best, they forget about the things that are really good for their mental health. So encouraging them to get back to simple things like getting enough sleep, eating the right things, exercise, or reconnecting with friends, or the things that bring them some joy is incredibly important to do when you're having a conversation with someone who you think might not be at their best, and connecting them to others. That could be family members, friends, or professional support as well. Jump to the next slide. So yeah, the final part that we do in the sessions that we go out to clubs is getting them a chance to, all right, if we recognise that someone might not be the best place, how do we prepare to have the conversation? So we jump to the next slide. So before we show this video, what we do with that is we get them to think about what might be the opening statement, the very first thing that you might say to that person. Where might you have that conversation? And what are the sorts of things that you might do to follow up as well? I'm sure you hear this term in footy, it's all about repeat efforts. So it's not just about having that initial conversation, but how do you commit to following up with the person as well? Once we go through that exercise, and the video we're about to share it's an example of Nathan Buckley as a coach, and he's noticed a shift with one of his players, Dylan Buckley, how he goes about having that conversation with the player that he thinks is acting out of character and not at their best. So, Colin, if you could play the video. Thanks.
Shot ads.
Going right, Deal?
Yeah, all good, mate. Thanks.
Good, mate.
All good.
Actually, how have you been, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. It's just study and everything at the moment. It's been a bit full on, but work.
Yeah.
Trying to stay on top of it.
You haven't been yourself, mate.
Yeah.
It looks like you've got a lot on your plate, a bit flat.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit flat. But, you know, it's good to come here and have a kick. But, yeah, like I said, just got so much going on. Struggling to keep up.
Have you got a minute, mate? I've got to set up a drill over here
Yeah.
and go for a walk.
Yeah, a minute.
Cheers. Yeah, when you snapped the training the other day,
Yeah.
and that's just not you, mate. It just seems like you've got too much on your plate.
Yeah, it's definitely not me. Like, I'm pretty embarrassed by it, but I think it just shows. Got a little bit probably going on, super stressed out, and just acting a way that I'm not super, proud of at the moment. I feel aligned.
We got to feel good first, mate.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be a 10 out of 10 all the time.
Yeah.
We don't feel like we expect you to be, jumping out of your skin all the time. It's okay to have ups and downs. Do you have someone to talk to? Are you opening up?
Yeah, like, I've got really good mates and my missus and stuff, but I don't know. I just feel I don't want to. It's nothing serious. Like, it's nothing massive. So I don't want to burden them with my worries. Like, they've got their own things going on.
You realise that they love you,
Yeah.
so they want you to check in on them and make sure that you're leaning on them as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely should. Like, I know they'd appreciate it. Yeah, I know they'd like to do it.
What makes you feel great? What makes time disappear? You got a day off tomorrow.
Yeah, golf. Yeah, love getting out and having a hit. It's definitely good getting out there, turn the phone off for a bit as well. It's my favourite thing to do.
Hey, thanks for opening up, mate.
Yeah.
I just want to help you as much as I can.
No, I appreciate it.
You okay if I check in next week with the chat with the missus and find out you've shot
I'd love
under par?
to. No, it'd be good.
Beautiful, mate.
Thanks,
You're getting
mate.
training.
Appreciate it.
What is the handicap, Dill?
In golf?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. Anyway, speak to...
You can jump to the next slide, please, Colin. Thanks, mate. So the video is a really good example just to show you it doesn't have to be too formal. And what I really liked is just the casual way that Nathan approached it. He shared what he noticed, so he wasn't being judgy. He just said, "Hey, I noticed you snapped that. That doesn't seem like you." And then asking questions to see how he's travelling and what else might be going on. The offer of support as well and that commitment to follow up. So I liked how he said, "Is it okay if I check in on how the conversation goes with his partner?" And it's by no means perfect as well. And when we share this with a lot of the footy clubs, they even share that the way they follow up with each other, it might be by sending some funny memes to each other to check in, or sending a text message. It doesn't have to be a follow-up conversation. It might be another way of checking in and following up with a person as well. So doesn't have to be too formal, doesn't have to be too threatening as well. So you see the way Nathan approached it was side by side. We've had people talk about car trips and having the person next to them. That's been a good time when they've been able to have conversations with people. So thinking about the setting and where you have the conversation is important, but also being mindful there's never going to be a perfect time to have the conversation, but is there a better time to have it as well? So thinking about timing is also useful as well. Jump to the next slide, please, Colin.
Well, 3 or 4 minutes left, mate.
No worries, thank you. So we also share, we appreciate that a lot of the coaches and also parents and umpires as well may work with younger people as well. So we just let them know about reporting requirements as well. You jump to the next slide, please. And then we wrap things up. So what we've been able to speed through tonight is usually an hour and a half session. But we've flown through just to give you a taste of what are the 3 simple modules we step people through in terms of understanding the fundamentals, getting better at lowering our eyes and recognizing what struggling, coping, and thriving might look like. And then once we've done that, how do we get numbers to the contest and support people that might be at their best, might not be at their best, but also how can we get better at recognizing where we are on the continuum and things we can do to look after our own mental health as well. So conscious of time, so take that as an action, even if it's just one thing that you keep doing or one thing you do differently on the back of tonight. And then we share these details as well in terms of professional support lines and my details there as well. So I'm conscious of time though, so we jump to the next slide and I'll hand back to Ryan to close out tonight.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. As you can see, Matt's done all the heavy lifting. I've just sat here and listened, so I've had the easy job tonight. Just on that previous slide that had all the support mechanisms on it, tomorrow I'll send you a copy of that, and you can see it's got Matt's details on it, which is just awesome. If you could just flick back there, Colin, thanks, bud. How the program works is that now that we've done what we call the face-to-face session, which is the session that we've done tonight, the next stage is that I'll send you an email, and it's got like a 20-minute recap of what we've gone through tonight. Then what it does is it opens you up to all these resources that support. And then the last step is that you're in the running to win lots of prizes, and they include like AFL Grand Final tickets. So in terms of this program, as you can see, Matt does all the heavy lifting, and I just get to ring people and say, here's 2 tickets to the AFL Grand Final. So I've got the easy job. So that concludes all our session tonight. I thank you for all jumping on. As I said, look, we'll send you an email with the last session, which is the online session, and then you've completed the first stage of the Tackle Your Feelings program, which, you know, as we go around to different community clubs and SANFL clubs, as you can see, it's really well received and it continues to grow every year. So thanks for your support tonight. I'll hand back to you, Colin, if you could.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Matt. I know I'm rushed, but I wanted to try doing it by Zoom because I think it will reach more people and have a good impact. We'll spend some time next week sharing stories. I have taken a note who I could see was on the call or on the Zoom tonight. So I'll pass those emails on to you, Ryan. If you don't receive an email in the next day or 2 from Ryan, please let me know. And it's just because I didn't get your name on this list. I did my best to get as many as I could. Thank you so much. This is a special Zoom. We'll get back to talking a bit of footy next week, but we will continue this discussion as well. Mental health obviously is a massive issue. Really important that we address it as a group and support each other. So thank you for joining us tonight. And the time is about to cut out. So we'll see you all at training for a free barbie on Wednesday night, and enjoy Gather Round. What a great week to be in Adelaide. Really looking forward to this week.